Welcome to this week's Today's Health and Wellness Podcast. This is Ashley.
And I'm Brett. The Today's Health and Wellness Podcast is a joint effort of the Central Ohio Health and Wellness Magazine and Today's Health.
In each week's podcast, we spotlight health and wellness stories you'll find in the magazine, on Today's Health web pages, on our social media, as well as extras you'll hear only in the weekly podcast.
Thanks for subscribing and hitting the play button. Let's get started. August is National Eye Exam Month, which makes it the perfect time for our podcast to spotlight why you should get your eyes examined.
Besides the obvious, so you can see more clearly, the online website Optometry Times offers up 5 good reasons, including save yourself a headache, perform well in school, determine your prescription, detect eye conditions, and prevent eye conditions.
Today's Health and Wellness's Mark Noose interviewed Dr. Michael Early from the Ohio State University College of Optometry about those reasons and more. Here's the interview.
Today we're talking about eye health, and in particular the eye health of children. Coming up, the month of August is National Eye Exam Month, and with us to talk about that from the OSU College of Optometry is Dr. Michael Early, and thanks for being here today.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. National Eye Exam Month, obviously shining a light on the need to have your eyes examined. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you, as an optometrist, look for when people are having their eyes examined.
And I do appreciate you guys bringing to light that it is the importance of an eye exam getting ready for school. So as you're getting the school books and the clothes, et cetera, for the kids, it is a great time to get the kids' eyes checked. So a comprehensive eye exam in a child actually is important because what we find out is kids, they don't really typically tell parents that the board is really blurry necessarily, or that the words on a page are blurry, or that the words on a page intermittently get blurry and then clear. So they're really bad historians. So really the only way to pick up sometimes an eye problem that a kid has is through a comprehensive eye exam. Mm-hmm. So what we would do in a comprehensive eye exam for a child, now going back a little bit, what we have to understand about kids' vision is when kids are small, they are actually farsighted for the most part. Okay, so that just means that being farsighted means that when you're looking far away, you have to focus a little bit, kind of like we do at near. So when we're looking up close when we're reading, we have to focus. Okay, what should happen is when you look far away, your eyes should be at rest. Kids, what we typically find is when they look far away, they actually have to focus because their eyes are a little shorter because they're going to grow. That means that when they're looking far away, they have to put in some effort. But they can do that. So for a child, when they look far away, the words do look clear to them. But what we don't know is how much are they straining to get those words clear. And there's no way to pick that up. There's no way to detect that with a screening. There's no way to ask them that. So a big part of our exam is to try to figure out, all right, is your refractive error, is your amount of farsightedness, et cetera, appropriate? Is it a small amount that you can handle for a long day in class, or is it higher than normal? So, you can imagine in today's classrooms, it's all smart boards. It's all close. So there's a lot of attention to detail. It's not like, I'm old. It's not like the old days when all I had to do was be able to see the colored dots on the walls. Now it's small print on an electronic board. So the kid comes in and we check and they can read the bottom line, but we have to go further and say, how much are you straining to actually clear that board? Right? And then the importance of that is that if you are straining to see the board far away, then when you read, then you have to focus even more because you have to focus that amount in distance plus more. And what we're finding from research and from National Eye Institute funded research is that kids that are even moderately farsighted are showing that their reading maturation, their literacy acquisition is actually delayed. Because we think we're not exactly sure what's going on, but we just think, is it too much effort? Is the word getting blurry, clear? Are they losing their place too much? So something that cannot be detected other than on a comprehensive exam can actually interfere with a child's reading progress. And some studies have shown that kids that are on IEPs for things like selective reading disability are actually misclassified. Selective reading disability is a real thing. Dyslexia is a real thing.
Sure.
But sometimes kids are misdiagnosed with that, and they don't have that. They actually have an eye disorder, which is interfering with reading, which from the teacher and from the testing looks like they have a reading disability. And the unfortunate thing is that often could just be corrected with glasses or with vision therapy, and we can get them out of those reading programs. So that's a big thing that what we're looking for in comprehensive exams is not only can they see, but how much effort. Are their eyes aligned when they think they're looking at a word? Are they really looking at a word? Mm-hmm. Sometimes kids, when they move from one word to the other, they skip words and they don't even know it, but it shows up in poor comprehension. And if a parent has a kid read aloud, sometimes you'll find kids that don't like to read aloud because they get that real staccatic, because that's the way their eyes are moving and they don't know it. So they read with their fingers, and those are all things that go into a comprehensive exam for a child.
And that's interesting because, all of us are familiar with going to the optometrist and having an exam. But if your child goes in, you're going to maybe do things a little bit differently for them.
We're going to do – so we recommend that the first eye exam be at 9 months.
Okay.
Right? So and what people are usually surprised about is they say, what goes into an exam for an infant? And as a pediatric doc, I do all of the same tests that I would do on an adult. I could check their ability to see detail. I could check their prescription. I could check their eye alignment. I can check their eye health. I have to use different procedures, but we check all of the same things on a baby that we would on an adult. We show cards, and it's interesting if you show two pieces of two cards, one has detail and one that doesn't. A child will always look to the one that has detail. They just do that naturally. That's just a reflex. So I take an infant, you show them a black card. One has a gray side and one has black stripes. If the child could see the black stripes, they'll just reflexively look towards the black stripes. So then I just make the stripes smaller and smaller and smaller until they can't resolve the stripes anymore. And now they see a card that looks equally gray on both sides to them. And then what I detect is they go 50-50 back and forth. So I could actually figure out how well does your child see.
Right.
Right. And then we can do objective. Everything is objective. We do objective tests. Do they need glasses? I'm not going to ask them, there's not a whole lot with a baby, which is better 1 or 2. We don't get great responses on that.
Right.
But we can actually determine everything on a child that we can on an adult. But you're right. It's a lot more games. It's a lot more animal noises. It's a lot more crawling on the floor for the doctor.
Right.
So it's a lot more fun for us. But we can get a lot of objective. So parents are afraid that kids are going to come in and, their friend got glasses, so he says he needs glasses. But we don't go by what the child says. We go by objective findings.
Right.
And then as they get older and then they can participate in which is better, 1 or 2, A or B, 57 or 58. Then we kind of move towards that as they mature.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. We were talking before we went on the air a little bit about so many of us found out when we first started going to school that we had a vision problem. We really didn't understand that before we went to school, and we had sort of a rudimentary exam, how they do in school sometimes, and then it was like, well, you need to go further and go see a professional. My question is, do schools still do that? Do they still screen kids, and do you get a lot of referrals that way?
Schools do still screen. It's still required in Ohio by state law that they be screened. It's important to understand what the screenings are picking up. So a lot of kids did find out that they needed glasses in school because, again, now a child typically starts out being farsighted. Their eye's a little too short. And then as they get older, their eye grows a little bit. Yeah. We like it if their eye stops at 0, right? But very often what we're finding more and more is their eye continues to grow. And if it grows back, then you become nearsighted. And then when the student does find, I can no longer see the board. Now, once they get into that, then they will self-report that a little bit more. They'll squint. They'll say, I can't see the board. The teacher will move them up. So that nearsightedness, myopia, that a screening will pick up pretty well.
Yeah.
And that often the kid will self-identify. I can't see the board anymore. I can't see the TV. The parents will notice they move closer. When they're younger, the screenings that we do on preschoolers, the screenings that we do on kindergartens, it's important that parents realize that those screenings are very specific to pick up a condition called lazy eye or amblyopia. And that is a condition where one eye, the connection between the eye and the brain, because when babies are born, their vision is terrible, and it gets better. And it gets better mostly because of changes in the brain. Not because of changes in the eye, but the brain gets better at processing visual input. And if a child is, let's say, more farsighted in one eye than he is in the other, then what the brain realizes is that one eye gives me a blurry image, the other eye is clear, and so the brain the part of the brain that receives input from the blurry eye doesn't change. So, and then when they come in and we put on glasses, we find out that their vision doesn't get better because it's not an eye problem. It's actually their brain didn't mature to process that vision. So that's what the screenings are designed to pick up in preschool is, does the child have that lazy eye? Is he developing? So you cover one eye, you read the line. You cover the other eye, you read the line. That's what we're looking for. But that's really the only thing that screening is, the major thing that's picked up. It's designed to pick up lazy eye or things that can cause lazy eye. And it does, and what our studies have shown, again, multi-center studies have shown, is it'll pick up about 60 to 65% of that in a child. So even if your child has lazy eye, a screening may miss it 30% of the time. Right? So it's important that parents understand that what goes on at the school, though very important, right, is a screening for a specific visual condition and something that can cause that condition. It's not an eye exam at all.
Right.
So yeah, you go in for a screening. We do get referrals, a lot of referrals, and the reason the screens are important is that actually only under 20% of kids actually get eye exams before they go to school.
Yeah.
So if your child, and there is no outward sign if your child has lazy eye. Parents don't know it because their brain just uses one eye.
Right.
So that screening is real important to pick up those kids that have that, because what we're finding is the earlier we treat that condition, the better off we are. So screenings are important for picking that up because not enough kids get eye exams. But then, and we get referrals from that, which is great. But parents do need to realize that that's not a substitute for a comprehensive eye exam, because in a comprehensive exam, we're looking for a lot more than just that one condition and the condition things that can cause that.
We're talking today with Dr. Michael Early from the OSU College of Optometry. August is National Eye Exam Month, especially pointing out that it's great to have the kids get their eyes examined before headed back to school. And, it's funny because my optometrist always says that he's probably the only doctor that can see inside my body without cutting me open. And he says, he looks for more than just something with my eyes. I mean, he can see inside and look at blood vessels and things like that. So when you're doing these comprehensive exams, what else can you see?
So that is exactly what's going on. And I'm glad he tells you that, because a lot of people don't realize that. So the back of the eye, right, that the tissue that's on the inside of the back of the eye is called the retina. And the retina is actually part of your brain. During embryology, a part of your brain actually moves and goes towards your eye. So when we're looking at the back of your eye, we are actually looking at your central nervous system. We're looking at a part of your brain. And because light has to be able to go through that retina, it's transparent. So what we can actually see are blood vessels. And it's not like blood vessels that you can see on the back of your hand. I could see a vein on the back. This is a blood vessel that actually I can see. I can tell the difference between an artery and a vein. I can compare the sizes. It's very much like, dissecting away the skin and looking at a blood vessel of your hand under a microscope. So we could pick up very subtle changes. So let's say you have high blood pressure. I could look at an artery and magnify it with a device called a slit lamp. When you sit back there, we're real nice. We dilate your eyes, then we shine a lot of light inside of there, right? Everyone's favorite part. But with that device, we could look at individual blood vessels, and we can say, okay, is the artery getting smaller? Is the part, the lumen, the inside of it, getting narrower because of plaquing? Are the arteries pushing on the veins? Are the veins showing clots? So things like high blood pressure that change blood vessels, we can actually see the physical change in the blood vessel. Diabetes causes arteries to leak, and we could see little tiny microscopic little blood clots, little blood bleeds that occur on the retina. So we could pick those up because we're looking exactly at those blood vessels. Now, the important thing is when we see those types of things going on in the eye, right, that's part of the brain. So those same things are going on in your brain. Those same things are going on in your kidney. Those same things are going on in your hands and your feet. So when diabetics lose feeling and they get tingling in their hands and their feet, that's because the blood vessels are becoming clogged. The blood vessels are no longer carrying blood, and so their fingers become numb. Well, we can see that in the eye before you get those objective tingling or kidney damage. If we don't pick it up early, then it can lead to blindness. And that's why, luckily, that a very big thing is all diabetics need to have a dilated eye exam. They should have a dilated yearly eye exam, because we could tell the doctor, okay, diabetes is a disease of blood vessels. We're the only docs that can actually look at a blood vessel and say, yeah, that blood vessel is affected.
Yeah.
We could look at the nerve, and we could see other diseases. Multiple sclerosis is a disease of the central nervous system. One of the very first things that's affected in that is the eye, whether or not you lose vision or eye coordination. So we could look if there's pressure inside the eye from tumors and stuff. It'll cause the nerve to swell a little bit. So you're absolutely right. When we're looking at the back of the eye, we are examining eye health, but eye health is obvious. It's connected to the rest of the body. So we can determine a lot of what's going on systemically. And the importance is the objective findings, the tiny objective findings, precede the subjective findings. So if we could pick up a change in a blood vessel, that'd be great before a patient has a stroke.
Right.
So that's really the importance of the eye exam is let's pick it up early.
And what are some of the things, if you're a parent, what are some of the signs that you should look for that obviously your kid should have an eye exam, as you mentioned, but what are some of the signs or some of the troubling signs you should look for or see that maybe there's something wrong with your child's vision?
Some of the certainly if you see a child squinting or if you see a child, things like that, moving closer. Little kids move closer to TV sets just because I think they like to be part of the TV. So that's not a really big indication. But if your preschool child or if your first grader is moving closer and closer, that's a pretty big indication. They're squinting to see far away. Those are all pretty good indications of nearsightedness.
Right.
A big finding as far as other is what we ask a lot is how is the child proceeding in things like reading? So let's say your child's doing really well, but he just avoids reading, or reading seems to be lagging behind. Well, reading requires so much visual attention, so much focus, so much accurate eye movement that could actually be when they start skipping words or they're progressively still reading with their finger, or they just avoid reading. Right? That's a typical thing things that are hard, kids avoid.
Right.
So, there's nothing averse about reading, but if it's really hard and you don't like it, that's actually a sign that we worry about. If a child takes on, sometimes a big thing that shows a binocular problem is kids will take on odd head postures. So they'll tilt their head, and in the process of tilting their head, what that does is it uses their nose to block the vision from one eye. So let's say a child has double vision when they read. They'll turn their head without even thinking about it, and they'll use their nose to block the vision out of one eye, and that gives them single vision. And kids do this all the time. They take on they'll tilt their head to one side. If they have certain muscle problems, tilting your head to one side makes it a lot better. So you see your kid, every time he tries to read, he just oddly tilts his head to one shoulder. You're like, well, that's unusual. And the kid doesn't know why he does it, but his brain is letting him know, I can keep things single. I could read better if you do that. Covering one eye. Sometimes you'll see a kid that'll just just put his hand up and you won't even know it. He'll just cover one eye with it.
Yeah.
And they don't say, oh, why do you do that? Oh, because if I don't, I find it easier to read. These are just things that the body figures out and the child does just naturally. And so if you find those types of things, those are all really big indications. Eyes watering and things like that. Certainly we look at, ocular allergies. We live in Ohio. It's a valley where things that we're allergic to fall into. So kids are real prone to things like that. We could pick those up.
What about headaches?
Headaches can actually be an indication, but they're not a big indication.
Okay.
What we could get sometimes more is eye strain. They get tired, their eyes get tired and things like that. But really, an actual headache, a kid comes in with headache, it's not one of the biggest. But even if it is a condition, what we have to make sure of is that headache is associated with near work. So we get a lot of kids. I see a lot of kids, and they get headaches, but they only get headaches when they're at school. But they don't get them on the weekends. And sometimes what I have to figure out is, okay, when does your school feed you lunch? Some of these bigger schools, some of these kids are eating lunch at 9:45, 10 o'clock. Yeah. So by the afternoon, they're just hypoglycemic, so they're hungry.
Sure.
So they could get headaches from that. And the parents think, well, he gets a headache at school. And it's like, oh, okay, well, what does he do in the weekend? Oh, he just loves to read. He just sits around and he'll go through Harry Potter. Okay, well, does that cause a headache? No. Well, then if reading, if using your eyes other than at school doesn't cause a headache, then you have to think, okay, what else is going on? So we, like other doctors, are big on having them take a headache journal. Mm-hmm. But yes, if you have a child that, complains of headaches and eye strain after reading for a half hour or something, then that's a pretty big indication. Mm-hmm. But
we're just about out of time. So again, August is National Eye Exam Month. The OSU College of Optometry, do you have any online resources that people can look at?
We do. If you go to www.optometry.osu.edu, we actually have we have a web page, and we have a web page dedicated to every one of our clinics.
Our guest on the program today has been from the Ohio State University College of Optometry, Dr. Michael Early.
Thanks again for listening to this week's Today's Health and Wellness podcast, brought to you by Central Ohio Health and Wellness Magazine and Today's Health. If you have a health and wellness segment you would like us to cover, send us an email. Our contact information is in the show notes.
And if you'd like more information about sponsoring our podcast, like Ashley just mentioned, our contact information is in the podcast notes. We look forward to hearing from you.
Circle270media.com.